For years, I carried that weight silently, attending family gatherings where my presence felt like an afterthought, a name checked off a list rather than someone truly seen or valued. It wasn't malicious, not entirely. They weren't cruel people, they simply didn't make space for me in their world. And so I learned to shrink myself, folding into corners and fading into the background while others took center stage. But when it came time to plan the most important day of my life, my wedding, I realized something had shifted inside me. I couldn't keep inviting them into moments that meant nothing to them, only to be met with indifference once again. It started long before I could put words to the feeling. Growing up, our family gatherings were lively affairs, filled with laughter, loud conversations, and an unspoken hierarchy that placed me firmly at the bottom. My older sister, Evelyn, was the star, the charismatic, confident one who could light up any room with her smile. My younger brother, Owen, was the golden child, charming everyone with his wit and effortless charm. And then there was me, quiet, dependable, and easy to overlook. At holiday dinners, I often found myself seated at the far end of the table, listening as stories unfolded around me without ever being asked to contribute mine. Birthdays passed with lukewarm enthusiasm. Achievements went uncelebrated unless they aligned with what others deemed noteworthy. As I grew older, the pattern continued. When Evelyn graduated top of her class, the entire family attended her ceremony, cheering loudly as she accepted her diploma. When Owen landed his first big job, they threw him a party complete with banners and speeches. Meanwhile, my accomplishments slipped by unnoticed, a college degree earned through late-night study sessions, promotions secured after years of hard work, all greeted with polite nods if acknowledged at all. Over time, I stopped expecting recognition, convincing myself it didn't matter. After all, wasn't that just how families worked? Some members shone brighter than others, and the rest simply supported from the sidelines. But the cracks began to show when I fell in love. Her name was Clara, and she changed everything. She saw me, not the version of me that blended into the wallpaper, but the real me, flaws and all. With her, I felt visible for the first time, like I mattered in ways I hadn't known I needed. Planning our wedding became a celebration not just of us, but of rediscovering who I was outside the shadow of my family's neglect. Every detail, from the venue to the vows, felt infused with meaning, a testament to the life we wanted to build together. And yet, as the invitations went out, doubt crept in. Should I include my parents? My siblings? What would happen if I did? Would they show up, only to treat the occasion as another box to check on their social calendars? Or worse, would they not come at all, leaving an empty chair where support should have been? The thought gnawed at me, keeping me awake at night as I wrestled with the decision. In the end, I chose honesty over obligation. Instead of sending formal invitations, I called each of them individually, explaining how much this day meant to me and asking, not demanding, that they consider attending. "It's important to me that you're there," I said, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. "But I need to know you'll be present, not just physically but emotionally." The responses varied. My mother hesitated, her tone tinged with guilt. "Of course we'll be there, sweetheart," she promised, though her words lacked conviction. Evelyn brushed it off, saying she'd try to make it work but couldn't commit until closer to the date. Owen barely listened, distracted by some sports game playing in the background. Their reactions confirmed what I already suspected. This wasn't their priority, not really. So I made a choice, one that terrified me, but also brought a strange sense of relief. I decided not to invite them. No excuses, no explanations beyond what I'd already given. If they cared enough to reach out, they would understand why. If they didn't, well, that answer spoke volumes too. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I felt lighter, freer, as if shedding decades of unspoken resentment had cleared space for joy. On the other hand, the absence loomed large, casting a shadow over moments that should have been pure happiness. Friends noticed, offering kind words and reassurances. Clara held my hand tightly during pre-wedding jitters, reminding me that this day was about us, not anyone else. When the morning arrived, I woke with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As I stood before the mirror in my suit, adjusting my tie, I caught sight of my reflection and paused. For the first time in years, I saw someone worth celebrating, someone who deserved to be seen. The ceremony itself was perfect, or as close to perfect as anything can be. Surrounded by friends who genuinely cared, I exchanged vows with Clara under a canopy of twinkling lights, promising to stand by her side through every high and low. Laughter echoed across the reception hall, mingling with heartfelt toasts and music that made toes tap and hearts swell. In those hours, I forgot about the empty chairs, focusing instead on the people who had chosen to fill the room with love. Afterward, as the festivities wound down, I stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The cool night breeze carried a hint of nostalgia, pulling memories of past gatherings to the surface. I thought about my family then, not with anger but with sadness. Sadness for what could have been, for the connections we might have built, if they'd only tried harder. Yet even amidst the ache, clarity emerged. This distance wasn't solely their fault. I had allowed it to fester, prioritizing their approval over my own needs for far too long. A week later, a package arrived at my door. Inside was a letter from my mother, written in her careful cursive. She apologized, not for missing the wedding, but for failing to see me all these years. "I'm sorry we let you down," she wrote. "You deserve more than we gave you, and I hope someday you'll forgive us." Enclosed was a small photo album filled with pictures from my childhood, each captioned with notes about moments she remembered fondly. It wasn't enough to erase the years of neglect, but it was a start. Over time, tentative bridges began to form. Evelyn reached out, asking if we could grab coffee sometime. Owen sent a text, awkwardly congratulating me on the wedding and promising to visit soon. My father called, his voice gruff but sincere, thanking me for giving him a chance to reflect on what he'd missed. None of it fixed everything overnight, but it opened doors that had long been closed. Looking back now, I realized that excluding my family from my wedding wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. For years, I had let their indifference define me, shrinking into silence rather than demanding to be heard. Speaking the truth freed me from that burden, allowing me to move forward with clarity and purpose. Life doesn't offer neat endings, no matter how much we crave them. Some wounds may never fully heal, and some relationships may never return to what they once were. But amidst the chaos and pain, there's always a chance for redemption if we're willing to fight for it. In the end, my family didn't just ignore me. They gave me an opportunity to rediscover my strength. And while I'll never forget what they did, I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to rise above the past and create something new. Because love, even flawed and complicated love, is worth fighting for.